It was the summer before my final year of college, and my cousin Ryan had recently gotten a set of military-grade night vision goggles for his birthday. He was always into gadgets and survival gear, and I was always the curious one. He left the goggles at my place for a few days, and one restless evening I decided to check them out. I had no real plan, other than to wander the nearby Pine Ridge Nature Preserve, hoping to catch a glimpse of nocturnal wildlife. I had been there a few times during the day, but it seemed like a whole new world after dark. The woods were a good 10-minute drive from my apartment, tucked in a secluded part of town, and as a college student, I was accustomed to the quiet. It was a half-moon night, with only a faint light filtering through the dense canopy above. My phone was nearly dead, and honestly, I wasn't thinking too much about anything other than getting away from my small apartment for a while. I parked in the darkened lot by the preserve's entrance, ignoring the sign warning about the park's closing hours. As I grabbed the goggles and my flashlight, I didn't anticipate anything unusual happening. In hindsight, it seems like a reckless decision. A young woman, alone, in the middle of the woods at night. But I thought I was just going for a nature walk. The woods were silent, save for the rustling of leaves underfoot. I used the flashlight to light my way as I walked further into the trees, the faint sound of distant animals making their usual nighttime noises. After a while, I sat down on a large rock to try out the goggles, excited to see what the world looked like in total darkness. Night vision is an incredible thing. Everything around me lit up in shades of green, turning the quiet forest into a bright, almost surreal landscape. I could see small creatures moving between the leaves, rabbits, squirrels, and even an owl perched nearby. For a while, I was caught up in the wonder of it all. But no deer. I had hoped to see a few, so I decided to move deeper into the woods for a better vantage point, something more hidden from the creatures I hoped to spot. After a short hike, I found a massive pine tree with wide, low branches. I loved climbing trees when I was younger, so it was no challenge to haul myself up and settle on a thick branch, waiting quietly. I had no idea that this would be the moment everything changed. What I saw through the goggles sent a cold shiver down my spine. A man, dressed entirely in dark clothing, moving deliberately from tree to tree, barely making a sound. His movements were careful and calculated, like a predator stalking its prey. He wasn't walking casually, he was hunting. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He was carrying a large hunting knife, his fingers wrapped tightly around the handle. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't hunting season, and the area was a nature preserve, so there was no reason for anyone to be armed like this. I was too afraid to breathe, watching from the safety of the branches above. He was moving cautiously, glancing around constantly, and I couldn't help but wonder if he was searching for someone. At first, I thought he hadn't noticed me, but then it hit me. The rustling noises I had heard earlier on my way in, I remembered them now. Had he been following me? The flash of a white car that had been tailing me as I drove here resurfaced in my mind, and an icy realization settled in. Could this man be the driver of that car? Had he circled back after I entered the park? My pulse raced as panic set in. I tried to steady my breath, but every movement felt like it might alert him to my presence. The man was so close now, just beneath my tree, scanning the area with methodical precision. I held my breath, praying he wouldn't look up. The night was silent, except for the sound of his footfalls below, and the longer I sat frozen in place, the more convinced I became that he was looking for me. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he stopped directly under my tree, his gaze lingering near the base of the trunk. My heart nearly stopped. I knew he could see the faint outlines of my feet. The cold grip of fear took hold as I thought, this is it. I'm done for. But then, inexplicably, he muttered, forget it, and turned back toward the direction he had come from. I didn't wait for him to change his mind. The moment he was out of sight, I scrambled down the tree and bolted through the woods, praying I wouldn't run into him again. I reached the parking lot, and my worst fears were confirmed. My car was there, but the windshield had been shattered by a large rock, and deep gashes scarred the sides of the vehicle, clear signs of a knife or sharp object. The realization hit me like a wave. If it weren't for those night vision goggles, I would never have seen him before he saw me. If I hadn't found that tree to climb, I might not have made it out at all. I'm not sure what his intentions were, but I'm grateful I didn't have to find out. The next time I visit those woods, I'll be much more careful, and I'll make sure I'm never alone at night again. Sarah was no stranger to the allure of antiques. She had always been fascinated by old, forgotten things, the history they held, the stories they whispered. One rainy afternoon, while exploring the winding streets of a part of town she rarely visited, she stumbled across an antique shop tucked in a dark alley. The shop looked as if it had been abandoned for years, its wooden sign creaking above the door. But Sarah, drawn by curiosity, stepped inside. The shop was a maze of forgotten treasures, dusty books, tarnished silver, and paintings covered in cobwebs. But it was a particular item that caught her eye. There, hanging on the far wall, was a wedding dress. It wasn't like any dress she'd seen before. The fabric was old and delicate, the lace intricate but yellowed with time. The dress shimmered oddly, even in the dim light, as though it had a life of its own. The shopkeeper, an elderly woman with a thin, cracked voice, noticed Sarah's gaze lingering on the dress. "That dress," she said quietly, "was meant to be worn on a wedding day, but it was never worn. The bride never made it to her wedding." Sarah, intrigued, approached the dress. The woman continued, her voice almost a whisper. The bride was found dead the night before her wedding. Some say she was cursed. Others say the dress is haunted. Either way, whoever owns it, strange things happen. Despite the ominous warning, Sarah felt a pull toward the dress. The thought of owning something so beautiful, so full of history, overwhelmed her hesitation. She couldn't resist. She bought the dress with no idea that it would change her life forever. When Sarah brought the wedding dress home, she didn't expect to feel anything other than excitement. But something was off. From the moment she hung the dress in her bedroom, a thick, oppressive air seemed to settle over the apartment. The room felt colder, even in the middle of a warm summer evening. Sarah told herself it was just the draft, but as the days went on, things grew stranger. She began to hear faint noises at night, footsteps that seemed to echo from the hallway outside her room. At first, she brushed it off as the house settling, but the noises became more distinct, soft, almost inaudible, as though someone was walking through her apartment. But when she checked, the apartment was always empty. One evening, after a long day at work, Sarah decided to try on the dress. The moment she slipped it over her head, a chill ran through her body. She stared at herself in the mirror, but something was wrong. The reflection staring back at her wasn't entirely her own. Her features were distorted, her eyes darkened, and her face, though still hers, held a strange, almost haunting expression. But then, as quickly as it had come, the vision was gone. Shaking her head, Sarah dismissed it as exhaustion. But that night, she heard whispers. Low, almost inaudible, but unmistakable. They seemed to come from the dress itself. Over the next few days, the hauntings intensified. Sarah began to feel like she was being watched, like the walls themselves were closing in on her. At night, she would wake to find the dress moved, slightly, but enough to be noticeable. Sometimes it was draped over the chair, other times it was carefully laid out on the bed as if someone had worn it. She tried to convince herself that she was imagining it, that maybe she was sleepwalking, but the sensation grew stronger with every passing night. One evening, she saw the reflection of a figure in the window, standing behind her. When she turned around, no one was there. The air was thick, like something was pressing in on her from all sides. Terrified, Sarah went back to the antique shop, hoping for answers. But the shopkeeper was gone. In her place was an old man who claimed that the shop had been closed for years. Sarah's heart raced as she realized the shop no longer existed. The street was different, and nothing seemed to match her memories of the place. Sarah's obsession with the dress deepened. She couldn't stop thinking about it, about the woman who had worn it, the woman who never made it to her wedding. Determined to uncover the truth, she began researching the dress's origins. After weeks of searching, she uncovered a chilling story. The dress once belonged to a woman named Isabella Thompson, a bride-to-be in the late 1800s. Isabella was a beautiful woman, adored by many, but she had a dark secret. Her fiancé, Richard Holloway, had discovered that Isabella was carrying the child of another man, a secret she had hidden for years. In a fit of rage, Richard confronted Isabella on the eve of their wedding, accusing her of betraying him. Isabella, distraught and ashamed, fled into the night, but she was found dead the next morning in a secluded area near the church. Her body was cold, her face frozen in terror, and the wedding dress was gone. It was said that Richard had been the last person to see her, but he disappeared without a trace, leaving the dress behind. Isabella's death was ruled a suicide, but the rumors persisted that she had been murdered. Some believed that her spirit had been trapped inside the dress, cursing anyone who came into contact with it. Those who owned the dress after her death were said to experience strange, violent occurrences, disappearances, madness, and worse. The more Sarah uncovered, the more the dress consumed her. The whispers grew louder, the nights longer, and the strange happenings escalated. She would find herself standing before the mirror, drawn to the dress, unable to move. And when she did move, it was as if an unseen force was pushing her, guiding her to wear it again. One night, she put on the dress and walked to the window. As she stared out, a dark figure appeared in the reflection. It was Isabella, pale, bloodless, and standing just behind Sarah. Her mouth moved silently, but Sarah could hear her voice in her mind. "Help me. Free me." Terrified, Sarah turned around, but there was no one there. The room had grown colder, and the dress was now in the center of the room, as if inviting her to come closer. As Sarah continued to wear the dress, her reality began to unravel. She would wake up in places she didn't remember going to, and objects in her apartment would move on their own. She started to see Isabella everywhere, standing at the foot of her bed, in the reflection of mirrors, and in the shadows lurking in corners. The woman's face was always twisted with pain, her eyes pleading for release. Desperate, Sarah sought help from a psychic named Eleanor, known for dealing with spirits and curses. Eleanor, upon entering Sarah's apartment, immediately sensed the dark energy emanating from the dress. She explained that Isabella's spirit had become bound to the dress, and that only a powerful ritual could release her. The ritual, however, was dangerous. It required a full moon, a blood offering, and a chant that could either sever Isabella's connection to the dress or release something far darker into the world. That night, under the full moon, Sarah and Eleanor prepared the ritual. As the chant began, the room grew ice cold, and the dress began to shake, its fabric rippling as if alive. Isabella's figure appeared, her face twisted in agony, her hands reaching for Sarah. With one final cry, Sarah followed the chant, offering a drop of her own blood onto the dress. The room exploded in a burst of light, and Isabella's spirit howled in torment, her form disintegrating into the air like smoke. The dress, once again, became still. The dress was gone, vanished into thin air, and the haunting ceased. But Sarah was never the same. She moved to a new city, leaving behind the apartment that had once held the cursed dress. However, every time she passed a wedding shop, every time she saw a dress similar to the one she had worn, she would feel a cold shiver run down her spine. The story of the ghost in the wedding dress became a cautionary tale, one of love, betrayal, and curses. And for Sarah, it was a story she would never forget. Mira had always loved him. Kian's song, the rising star of the K-pop world. His voice was melodic, smooth, and rich. His smile, as if crafted by the gods themselves, lit up every stage he graced. Mira had been a fan since his debut. His every movement, every note he sang, left an indelible mark on her heart. She wasn't just another fan in the crowd. No, she believed she was different. She was special. She was the one who truly understood him. She collected everything Kian had ever touched: albums, posters, concert tickets. Her apartment was a shrine, a curated collection of his career, from his earliest days as a trainee to his present success. But the thing that had caught her most was his gaze. When Kian performed, his eyes would lock with hers, and in that brief moment, it was as if time stopped. She imagined that in those fleeting seconds, he could feel her presence. Maybe not in the way she felt it, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that he noticed her. The fans in the crowd screamed, shouted, waved light sticks. But Kian, when his gaze fell upon her, she was certain that it lingered a moment longer than necessary. It was as if there was something more. She wasn't just part of the crowd. She mattered to him. It was a cold Friday evening when she saw the tweet. Kian's agency had announced that they were holding a small exclusive fan meeting for a select group of fans. To win an invitation, you had to engage in the company's social media contest, a raffle that would select only the most dedicated fans. Mira's heart leaped in her chest. This was her chance, her moment. She stayed up all night, entering every possible form of the contest, tagging Kian's official fan pages, reposting, commenting, and sharing every possible post related to the contest. Sleep-deprived and dizzy, she finally received the notification. She was one of the lucky winners. She would meet Kian. Her hands shook with excitement as she reread the email. The details were vague, just a time, a location in Seoul, and a note about special instructions. It didn't matter. She would meet him, face to face. The day arrived faster than she could prepare for it. Mira spent hours perfecting her outfit, styling her hair, and carefully choosing the gift she would give him, a small, handcrafted music box she had spent weeks designing. She wanted to give him something personal, something that said, "I understand you." The fan meeting was held in a nondescript building, away from the bustling crowds. Mira arrived early, her heart pounding in her chest as she waited for the doors to open. Fans trickled in, all of them talking excitedly. But Mira stayed quiet, her eyes focused on the entrance, waiting for Kian to appear. When he finally stepped into the room, everything else faded away. He was even more beautiful in person. His presence was magnetic, his smile brighter than she had ever imagined. He walked down the aisle between the rows of fans, his eyes scanning the room, stopping briefly as he looked into Mira's eyes. It was brief, a passing moment, but for Mira, it felt like an eternity. The fan meeting was everything Mira had imagined. Kian answered questions, joked with the crowd, and took pictures with fans. Each time he smiled or laughed, Mira felt a part of her heart soften. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. When it was her turn to meet him, she stepped forward, trembling with anticipation. The distance between them felt like an eternity. As Kian extended his hand, she placed the music box in his palm. He looked at it with a small frown, then up at her with a raised eyebrow. "You made this?" he asked, his voice smooth and warm. Mira nodded, her breath catching. "It's for you," she said softly. I thought you might like it." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thank you. I'll keep it safe." Her heart raced as he took a photo with her. He stood too close, his hand resting on her shoulder. The photo was taken, but for Mira, time seemed to stand still. For a brief moment, she thought she saw something in his eyes. A flicker. Recognition. As if Kian was seeing her for the first time. It was nothing, she told herself. He was just being kind. But as she left the room, a strange unease began to coil in her stomach. The fan meeting ended, but Mira's obsession with Kian only deepened. That night, she replayed the moments in her mind. His smile, his touch. There was no doubt in her mind now. She was different from the others. He had noticed her. And even though it was brief, he had remembered her. Days passed and Mira found herself obsessively searching for anything related to Kian. Videos, photos, fan interactions. But then one night, she found something odd. It was a simple message on his fan page. "Thank you for the beautiful gift. I've been thinking about it all day." It was from Kian. But the message wasn't meant for the public. It was a private post, one directed solely at her. Her fingers shook as she typed a response. "I'm glad you liked it. I made it with you in mind." She hit send, not expecting a reply. But to her surprise, Kian responded almost immediately. "Come to the studio tomorrow night. I'll be waiting." Her heart raced. This couldn't be real. The next day, Mira followed the instructions in the message. She arrived at the studio just as nightfall set in, her breath visible in the cold air. The lights in the building were dim, and there were no signs of anyone else. Mira hesitated for a moment, but then pressed the doorbell. The door opened almost immediately. There, standing in the dim light, was Kian. His eyes were cold, but they lingered on her, unblinking. "You came," he said, voice soft but unmistakably sharp. "Good. Come inside." Mira's heart pounded as she stepped into the darkened hallway of the studio. The air was thick with the scent of incense and old leather. Kian led her down a narrow corridor, past empty rooms filled with sound equipment and recording instruments. "Do you like it here?" he asked, his voice distant, like he was testing her. "I do," Mira said, struggling to steady her voice. "I love your music. I feel connected to you, more than I can explain." He nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving her face. They reached a small, dimly lit room. A large window on one wall overlooked the city below. The entire space was eerily quiet, except for the soft hum of machines in the background. "Sit," Kian said, gesturing to a chair at the center of the room. Mira obeyed, her body trembling. Kian closed the door behind them. "You know, Mira," he began, his voice suddenly colder, more deliberate. "You're not like the other fans. They scream, they shout, they beg for my attention. But you've always been different. You've watched, haven't you? From the shadows, in silence, in silence." Mira's throat tightened. I don't understand." His eyes glinted with something dark. "You gave me the gift, the music box. It's beautiful. But you've been watching me, not just through the camera, but through everything." Mira recoiled, her hands shaking. She had been too careful, too hidden. How did he know? Kian stepped closer, his voice soft but filled with a chilling certainty. "You think I didn't notice? That I didn't feel your gaze on me all this time? You've been the one who watches me from the shadows. But now I want to see you, Mira, all of you." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black device. A camera. Mira's heart stopped. "You wanted to be close to me, didn't you? You wanted to know me. But now I'm going to show you something." He pressed a button, and the room's lights flickered. Images appeared on the screen, one after another. Video clips of Mira from her apartment, watching him through the camera. The recordings were crystal clear. Her body froze in horror. He had been watching her. "You've been following me for so long," Kian whispered, his voice almost a lullaby. "But now you're mine. You belong to me, just like all the others." The room felt suffocating. The images on the screen were of her quiet moments, her obsessive gaze. And then, the message became clear. He was not the one being watched. He had always been the watcher. Suddenly, Mira realized with a sickening twist in her stomach that she had become part of his collection, his private world. The door slammed shut behind her. Kian stepped forward, his eyes glinting with malice. "You wanted me. You watched me. Now you're here, and you will never leave." Mira's pulse pounded as she backed into the corner of the room. "What do you mean? You can't do this to me." Kian smiled darkly. "The game's over, Mira. You're not the first one to fall into my trap, but you're the one who watched the longest." He stepped closer, and this time, his voice dropped to a whisper. "And now, you will always be here."
Two years ago, I moved to Texas with my best friend and roommate, Sarah. We rented a small, cozy apartment on the outskirts of town. I've always had a fascination with dolls, not the plastic kind, but those beautiful porcelain antiques. To me, they weren't creepy, they were comforting. So, on my birthday, when Sarah handed me a delicately wrapped box, I was thrilled. Inside was the most stunning doll I had ever seen. Her skin was pale porcelain, smooth except for a faint hairline crack under her right eye. She had cascading auburn curls and the most hauntingly vivid blue eyes I'd ever seen. Eyes that glistened like glass but somehow felt alive. I was in awe. I saw her in an antique shop and immediately thought of you, Sarah smiled. I named her Hazel. She took her place of honor on my nightstand, facing my bed. At night, her eyes reflected the soft light of my lamp. They sparkled, almost too much. In the beginning, everything felt fine. Hazel added charm to my room, and I found her presence oddly comforting. But that comfort began to sour within a week. It started small. My phone charger would be unplugged in the morning. A spoon I knew I had placed in the sink would be back on the counter. I blamed Sarah at first, thinking she was playing pranks, but she swore she wasn't. Then came the whispers. At night, just as I was drifting to sleep, I'd hear faint murmurs. Soft, female, like a lullaby sung through clenched teeth. I'd sit up, heart pounding, but the room would be silent except for Hazel's eyes, reflecting moonlight, staring directly at me. I told myself it was stress, a trick of the ears, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger, heavier. I couldn't shake it. It followed me from room to room, especially when Hazel was nearby. One night I awoke with a start, my arm stinging. When I turned on the light, there were 3 long, thin scratches running down my forearm. I checked the sheets, my nails, even under the bed. Nothing. But Hazel, who normally sat upright, had slumped forward, her face turned toward me, mouth slightly agape. The next morning, I found strange symbols drawn in soot on the mirror. Circles within circles, lines like thorns twisting into runes. I wiped them away quickly, refusing to acknowledge the fear spreading in my chest. That day, I went to see Father Thomas at the small Catholic church down the road, a kind, older man with tired eyes. When I explained what was happening, he grew silent. "Camila," he said gravely, "some objects carry spiritual residue, negative energy. They can become vessels, homes for things that should not walk this world." He offered to cleanse the apartment and banish whatever was attached to the doll, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't give up Hazel. She was a gift from Sarah, a symbol of our bond. So I politely declined. That night, the whispers returned, louder, clearer. I heard my name spoken with a breath that wasn't mine. "Kama, help me." I froze. My entire body went numb. Hazel sat in her usual place, but her head had turned slightly. I was sure of it. Her eyes gleamed unnaturally in the dark. Still, I didn't scream. I didn't run. Instead, I replied, "What do you want?" There was no answer. But something shifted. The air grew colder. My breath fogged up. Hazel's eyes seemed to soften for a moment. I told myself I was imagining it, but deep down I knew I wasn't. From then on, I began speaking to her. Every night, whispered conversations in the dark. I told her about my fears, my childhood, my dreams. I shared things I had never even told Sarah. In return, Hazel never moved, never answered again. But she listened. I could feel it, and I felt connected. But the deeper our connection grew, the darker the apartment became. The lights flickered constantly. Cold spots would appear in corners. Sarah started having nightmares, screaming in her sleep. Once, she woke up with a nosebleed and a bruise in the shape of a small handprint on her thigh. She asked me to move Hazel into the closet. I refused. We argued. Then one morning, I found Hazel sitting on Sarah's pillow. Neither of us had put her there. That day, Sarah packed a bag and left to stay with her sister. She never came back. Left alone, I sank deeper into Hazel's world. The symbols reappeared, carved into the wooden floor this time. The walls began bleeding ever so faintly around the baseboards. Not red, something darker, black, like oil. At night, I'd hear footsteps circling my bed. My reflection in the mirror would sometimes smile when I didn't. My fingernails turned brittle. My skin grew pale. I barely slept, and still I couldn't part with her. Then came the night I truly lost control. I was lying in bed, eyes closed, when something crawled onto my chest. I opened my eyes, but saw nothing. I couldn't move. It was like being pinned down by invisible hands. My chest burned, my vision blurred, and then I heard Hazel again. But this time her voice was not soft. It was desperate, screeching. "Karma, don't leave me!" I screamed. My body jerked free. I lunged for the door, but it slammed shut. The windows rattled. Hazel had fallen off the table and lay face up on the floor, smiling. Blood dripped from her porcelain lips. That was the moment I finally broke. The next day I called Father Thomas. I begged him to come. This time he brought help. 3 people in dark robes, carrying candles and vials of holy water. They set up quickly, chanting as they surrounded Hazel. The moment they began, the room changed. The temperature plummeted, the windows shattered, the floor shook. Hazel shrieked, a high-pitched sound that came from nowhere and everywhere. Her mouth opened wider than it should have, revealing a cavern of black. Father Thomas shouted ancient prayers. One of the robed women collapsed, blood pouring from her nose. The lights exploded, but still they continued. The chanting rose to a fever pitch and then silence. Hazel's body cracked, a line running straight down her face. Her eyes rolled back, and then stillness. She was gone. They sealed Hazel in a glass case, wrapped in silk with runes burned into the fabric. She was taken to a private museum that specialized in cursed objects, a place far from here, far from me. I watched them carry her away, and I wept, not from fear, but from something else, grief. Even now, months later, I can't explain it. Was Hazel truly evil, or was she just misunderstood? A spirit reaching out, confused, lonely, clinging to the only person who ever listened. My room is empty now. Peaceful, yes, but sterile. Cold, quiet. Too quiet. And sometimes, just as I'm falling asleep, I swear I hear it again. A whisper. "Come on." And I wonder, did I really save myself, or did I abandon her?
My mom had always worked a late shift at the hospital. She was a dedicated nurse, and I was used to being alone in the house at night. For a 17-year-old, it wasn't too bad. Our house was cozy and well secured, good neighborhood, neighbors I knew by name, and everything felt safe. It was always just me, the quiet hum of the TV, and my books. But recently, things had started to change. Mom started bringing her work home, and the weight of the stress was beginning to affect her. She seemed more distant, more anxious. Her new boyfriend, Tony, had started staying over more often, and Mom would always brush it off, saying it was nice to have someone around since she worked such late hours. I didn't mind it at first. Tony was charming, always friendly, and we had dinner together sometimes. But there was something strange about him. A look in his eyes when he thought I wasn't looking. It made my skin crawl like he was studying me, not in a fatherly way, but like I was something to be observed, analyzed. That evening, the change was palpable. Mom had left earlier in the evening, and Tony said he was going out with friends. I sat down to finish my homework, distracted by a growing sense of unease. It wasn't like the usual feeling I got when I was home alone. This time, there was something in the air. It was around 10:30 when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw Tony standing there, wearing a black jacket and jeans. He looked different. His face was flushed, his eyes wide in a way that made my heart race. He wasn't smiling. Instead, there was a look of desperation, almost like he was panicked. I hesitated but opened the door a crack, the chain lock keeping it from swinging all the way open. "Tony, what's wrong?" I asked, trying to hide the tension in my voice. "Maya," he said, his voice low and urgent. "I need to talk to you. I need your help." I raised an eyebrow. "Help? With what?" His hand reached for the door, and I instinctively stepped back, my heart beginning to pound. I did something terrible," he muttered, stepping into the doorway, his breath coming fast. "Please, let me in. I need your help. If I tell you everything, you have to promise you won't tell anyone, okay?" "Tony, what are you talking about?" I said, backing away slightly. My hand was hovering near the phone, but I didn't want to alert him. He pushed the door open wider, his body blocking the entrance. I had no choice but to let him in, my instinct screaming at me to shut the door and call my mom. But I didn't. I stepped back as he entered the house, his eyes darting around. I hurt someone," Tony whispered, his voice shaking. "I wasn't supposed to. I didn't mean to, but it happened." He looked at me with wide eyes, his pupils dilated. "I need you to hide me. Please, Maya. I don't have anyone else." I froze. "Hurt someone? What are you talking about? Tony, you need to leave, now." He didn't move. His expression became darker, almost menacing, and something in his voice shifted. "I didn't want to. I swear I didn't want to, but it happened, and I need you to help me cover it up. You're the only one I can trust, Maya. I can't go to prison." I didn't say anything for a moment, my mind racing. What had he done? Why was he here? Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, startled, and turned to see Tony standing by the hallway, his face flushed with emotion, his hands trembling. "Listen to me, Maya," he said, stepping closer. "I made a huge mistake, and if anyone finds out..." I could feel my pulse quicken. Something wasn't right. "What did you do, Tony?" I asked, my voice trembling with fear. His face twisted, and in that moment, I saw something dark in his eyes. I didn't mean to hurt them, but I didn't have a choice. His hands reached for me suddenly, and I stepped back. "Tony, what are you talking about? You need to leave now. I'm calling Mom." He shook his head, and his eyes filled with something cold. "You get it, Maya. I'm not leaving. You're not calling anyone. Not until you help me." I could feel the panic rise in my chest. He had crossed a line. My mind was racing, and every instinct told me to run, to get out of the house. But before I could even think, he lunged forward, grabbing my wrist in a grip that felt like iron. "Let go of me," I screamed, struggling against him. "You don't understand," he whispered, his breath hot on my ear. "They're dead. They're dead because of me. And you're going to help me cover this up. You're going to help me, or..." He let the sentence hang in the air, his fingers tightening. I knew I had to think fast. My brain was working in overdrive, but fear clouded my judgment. I managed to wrench my wrist free and stumbled backward, my back hitting the wall. "Please," I begged. my voice shaking. "Just let me go. I don't know what you did, but I can't help you." Tony's face twisted in anger. "You will help me," he said, his voice cold. But then his eyes flickered, like he was seeing something else in me. Something vulnerable. I'll do whatever you want," I said quickly, my voice trembling as I searched for a way to get out of this. "But I need to call Mom. I need to talk to her. She'll help us, please." For a moment, there was a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, and I seized the opportunity. I spun around, grabbing my phone from the table, my fingers shaking as I dialed. "Mom, Tony's," I started, but before I could finish, the phone was knocked from my hand, crashing to the floor. Tony was standing right behind me, his face filled with fury. "You think you can call for help?" he snarled. "You think anyone will believe you?" Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Loud, insistent. Tony froze. His face went pale, and for the first time, fear flashed across his features. He turned to me, his eyes wild. "Don't answer it," he hissed, his grip tightening around my arm again. But I was already moving. I bolted toward the door, my body shaking with fear and adrenaline. I flung open the door, and standing there, wide-eyed and out of breath, was a man I didn't recognize. Behind him, the silhouette of a police officer was visible. "I heard yelling," the man said, his voice shaky. "Is everything okay?" Tony's grip on my arm tightened, and I felt a rush of panic. But before he could react, the police officer stepped forward, pulling out his badge. "We've been looking for a suspect who fits your description," the officer said, his voice calm but authoritative. "You're under arrest for the murder of..." Tony's eyes widened in shock. In that moment, everything seemed to slow down. I barely registered the rest of the officer's words as Tony lunged at me, but the officer was faster. He grabbed Tony, yanking him back and cuffing him before he could make another move. The world spun as I collapsed against the door frame. The officer turned to me. "Are you all right, miss?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. He killed someone," I whispered. I didn't know. The officer gave me a reassuring look. "It's okay, you're safe now." And that's how I learned that sometimes the people closest to you aren't who you think they are. And even the ones who seem harmless can hide the darkest secrets. Under the light of a new moon, the clouds were as thin as gauze. The dirt road leading into the forest was so quiet that the sound of dry leaves sounded like bones scraping against each other. Alex walked ahead, the flashlight hanging from his backpack swaying, cutting a thin line of light through the fog. Maya followed closely behind, her hands cold, each step like she had to be pulled out of the mud. Leo walked behind, tripod and camera bag slung over his shoulder, his eyes deep but alert, scanning the surroundings like a sentry, silently counting his breaths to keep calm. They had read the worn-out diary, an anonymous priest written in blotchy reddish-brown ink about a village forgotten because of its debt to shadows. Maya stopped abruptly, grabbing Alex's sleeve. "Do you feel it? Like someone hungry?" Alex laughed, reassuringly in a light voice.
"I don't know, guys. I'm getting a really bad feeling
Perfect
about
for a
this."
Halloween video. He raised the camera, panning around. Fog, trees, darkness. The lens caught a few specks of dust that shone like fireflies, or other things, small and staring back. Then the village appeared without warning, without a single light, without a puff of smoke. Only the air was heavy as a stone pressing on the chest. In front of the village gate, a rickety sign hung by a rusty string. Alex brought the flashlight closer. Burned black words were etched into the wood. The unharvested shadows will find the curious. Maya took a step back. Alex smiled again, but his eyes were trembling. He pushed the gate open. The hinges made a long, screeching sound, like someone sucking in a breath to contain the pain. Inside, the village streets were filled with mud and leaves. The doors were half open, like cave entrances. Alex led the group into the first house, its wooden floors creaking. The musty smell mixed with the smell of burning incense crept into Maya's nose, making her cough slightly. On the table, an overturned earthenware bowl still lay. Alex flipped the bowl over. Below was a black and white photograph, blurry and cracked. A group of people in brown shirts, holding sickles, standing in the middle of a rice field that had been harvested to the stump. Leaving the house, they walked deeper. Every strange sound began to creep around them, light footsteps behind them. But when they turned around, there was only mist. Sighs from the abandoned well, whispers mixed in the wind, like many voices overlapping. Not harvested yet. Alex leaned into each door, panting with hunting instinct. Blurred figures began to touch the edges of the frame, just the corners of eyes. But Maya could clearly see a pair of eyes red as burning coals peering through. She grabbed Alex's hand so hard it hurt. Alex, stop. It's a trap. Alex stubbornly. I just need a few more shots. Suddenly, a window banged as if someone had crashed into it. All three spun. Behind the cracked glass, a face appeared for a moment. Hollow, eyes two dark red holes, mouth open but making no sound, then suddenly gone. Alex dropped the camera to the floor, the indicator light still flashing. They gathered their things and ran to the middle of the village. There, a small square led into many crisscrossing alleys. Houses on both sides changed positions. Windows seemed to turn to watch them. Leo counted his steps, but the count kept slipping away, as if someone had broken the numbers in his head. A hand reached out from the void and grabbed Leo's wrist. Leo jerked, jumped back, the other hand flailing reflexively, leaving 5 long purple marks on his skin, like the marks of fingers without flesh. They were lost in a corridor, in the village. Maya closed her eyes, took a deep breath, trying to find a beat other than her own. And she heard it. Under her feet, in the ground, something moving. Like many hands crawling, searching for calves, ankles. Don't stand still, Maya whispered. They can pull if we stand still. They continued walking, and then the corridor suddenly opened in front of a small church, the bell tower broken in half, the clock face frozen at 3:13. Alex pushed the door. The smell of burnt incense came like a wave. On the altar, portraits were pasted on top of each other. Peasant faces, dark eyes, gentle but deep down were tired and resentful. Some of the photos were torn, revealing behind them were old words, called to pay rice tax, didn't return, strange disease after harvest, missing in the well. The paper shook even though there was no wind. A dry bell rang from the broken tower, not knowing who had rung it. The candles in the church flickered, then flared up a little before going out. Maya held her head. They're coming! Leo grabbed Alex's shoulder. Go, Now! But the crescent moon suddenly rushed out from behind the clouds, casting silver light on the broken window. And as the moonlight touched the church floor, from the dark corners, figures began to step out. A figure approached Alex, reaching out to touch his collar. He was lifted, his feet kicking into the air, a scream stuck in his throat as if swallowed by the thick air. The smell of corpses and incense smoke, mixed with the smell of burning straw, lingered around. Alex was mumbling, his hands flailing. Leo let out a low growl, lunged forward, grabbed Alex's stomach, and pulled him back. He felt those dry, scratched fingers dig into Alex's skin like hooks. He pulled hard. Alex's body fell into Leo's hands like a sandbag, both of them rolling down the church steps. Maya, still holding her head, suddenly opened her eyes, grabbed the metal bracelet, put it on Alex's wrist, her hands trembling. "Alex, the number, the document in the diary." Alex gasped. He rummaged through his backpack and pulled out a piece of paper marked with a marker. On it, under the phrase, "Do not call their names," there was a short, hastily written and ugly verse. "The shadow demands its share. The person returns the favor. The black fire shines, the boundary opens. When the moon is a scythe, place the ring between the shadow and the bone. When the..." Maya recited in a whisper. She placed the Giamchio ring in the space between the three people and the shadows. The ring did not touch the ground. It hung there, as if tied to something invisible. A very soft crack, like a tight string being cut. A few shadows dissolved like smoke. Only their red eyes fell like upside-down fireflies, extinguished in the air. The wall cracked open like a mouth. Portraits pasted on the wall fell out, flying around in the wind that came from nowhere. Breathing, the sound of wood groaning, the sound of people screaming from the ground. The passages outside, seen through the windows, seemed to change places, retreating when someone tried to step forward, sliding like the surface of water. "Not long enough. Just hold them. A little," Maya said, her eyes not leaving the circle. Leo lifted Alex up. "Which way?" Maya closed her eyes, feeling. Everything was like a moving maze, but there was a rhythm. The rhythm of the forest. She opened her eyes, pointing towards the side door of the church. They rushed out. The circle of judgment drifted along, following Alex like a black bird. Shadows spread out from both sides of the alley. A dry hand jumped up from the ground, grabbed Alex's ankle. He almost fell. Leo bent down and hit hard. The hand shattered into cold ash. "Don't stand still," Maya reminded. The shadows rushed forward, not slow this time. The circle of judgment shook, emitting a sound like metal rubbing against stone. Maya read the awkward words again, her voice starting to break. The largest shadow, probably the shadow of the old village chief from years ago, stretched out, its eyes red like two pieces of hot iron. It touched the edge of the circle and cried out. It took a step back, just one, but enough for the three of them to break free of the encirclement, dash through the broken fence, trample on rotting leaves, and breathe in the forest air. Leo ran ahead, then Alex, Maya. Behind them, the village stretched out, trying to hold them back with the alleys sliding under their feet. The wind came. The mist in the village was whipped back like a curtain. The shadows at the edges couldn't get through, their red eyes burning, then fading like dying embers. A long, long sigh, as if the whole village were exhaling. They didn't stop until they were deep in the forest. Leo plopped down, his back against the tree trunk. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were still alert. Alex put the camera on his lap, the light still flashing. I got it, he said, unsure. Maya hugged her knees, put her chin on them, inhaled the smell of damp leaves like medicine. "We're out," she whispered. "Temporarily." A week later, on Halloween night, Alex sat in his rented room, the window ajar, the sound of cars in the distance like a hazy river. He turned on the camera, reviewed the footage. In the frame, the fog shimmered beautifully like an effect. The door closed by itself, the windows slammed shut, the hallway seemed to stretch out. Everything was there. The circle of judgment appeared in a few frames, black like a hole in the image. There was a very light knock on the door. He looked up. No one. In the silence, a very soft sigh passed by, as if coming from the corner of the wall. Alex stood up, walked to the window, pulled the curtains. Outside on the street, people were laughing, dressing up. Cheap witch and vampire masks danced under the neon lights. When he pulled the curtains back, in the reflection on the glass, Alex saw that behind him there was not only his shadow, there was also a thin, flat, long black streak, like a scythe leaning against the corner of the room. He turned around. The corner of the room was empty. Alex thought to himself, "Stress." The phone vibrated. A message from Maya. "Are you listening tonight?" Alex was about to reply, "Listen to what?" when he heard it. In the sound of the wind seeping through the crack of the door, an old sound crept into the room. Tired but persistent. Not harvested yet. Leo texted the group, "Don't be alone. Lock the door." Alex looked up at the door lock. It was still locked. Then he looked at the floor. There were a few small black dust particles, like ash, lying in a semicircle at the threshold. The circle of the orb had fallen back at the edge of the forest that night. But here, something had left the mark of another circle. Alex opened the cupboard, looked for the priest's diary. On the last page, under the red-brown ink, there was a new line. The ink still wet, the smell of burnt incense lingering. "They can't harvest the body. They will wait for the soul." He took a step back. In his mind flashed that red eye. The circle of the guardians may be temporary, but the border is real. He texted back, "Come to my place tonight. Stay. Stay." Maya replied with a moon icon. Leo replied, "I brought the rope." Alex smiled, half believing. What was the rope for? But then he remembered the moment they'd grabbed each other in the church. Perhaps that very bond was the only thing the shadow couldn't cut. Outside the window, Halloween bustled and then faded. Inside, 3 people sat side by side, candles placed around them, salt sprinkled on the threshold in a circle toward the window. "If they need a way out, give them a way out, not in," Maya whispered. Leo tied the rope around the 3 people's wrists, linking them like another circle, made of material so ordinary that even ghosts despised it. But ordinary is hard to break. Near midnight, when the new moon pierced the clouds once more, the whisper came again, clearer, as if someone was standing close to their ear. "Not harvested yet." Alex took a deep breath. "We are not your fields. You have been taken. We do not pay with us. If necessary, we will tell. We will name what happened." Maya nodded, eyes closed as if listening. Leo gently tightened the rope. The whisper receded a little, like an old man turning away, disappointed and relieved. The candlelight swayed, then stopped. At the doorway, the half-circle of black ash faded, giving way to the yellow dust particles of the street. They fell asleep as the sky neared dawn. In his dream, Alex saw that field again. The harvesters bowed their heads, the horizon blurred like a stain. But this time, when he looked up, at the edge of the field was a small black line, thin as a thread, the forest. Many years later, every Halloween season, in university clubs or video channels, the story of the Goaty Guy. It was rumored that every 100 years, the village opened its doors to harvest souls. Some people said they saw flashlights swaying in the mist. Some heard whispers like thin knives cutting through the wind. Alex, Maya, Leo did not return. They promised each other, if one day they needed to, they would go together and only together. They still heard the very light sighs in the windy night, like endless memories. But somewhere deep in the forest, the village still lay there. The houses changing places like board chess pieces. The cracked statue looked down at the dry hands crawling across the brick floor. The crescent moon occasionally turned into a scythe, licking a bright line on the warning board in front of the gate. The unharvested shadows will find the curious. And it seemed, somewhere in the shadows, a black circle still hovered, waiting for the right person to place it between the shadow and the bone. Because the border only exists when someone stands there to say, enough.